is Ryan Asbury. So Ryan is also known as Dyson, is a Birmingham-based artist who's studying their final year of fine art at the Birmingham School of Art. They're also one of the founding members of Round Lemon and the current director. Their work explores many themes encircling the innate naivety of humans, societal issues surrounding kink, sex work, and queer identity. Their work comes in many different forms and mediums, including writing, performance, digital constructs, and painting, most notably their sexual and domestic performance camp show in 2019. More recently, the creation of Switch Manifesto in 2020 acts as centerpiece for their work to orbit, exploring the narrative that queer people are evacuating Earth and seeking asylum on Pluto, a space rock which has a fluctuating identity, with the hope of finding a more inclusive regime. And with that, I would like to pass you on to Ryan.
So hi guys, let's just share my screen. Now the Jägermeister hasn't completely kicked in yet, so it might take me a moment. So I thought I'd talk about the more recent things that I've been looking at and working with. Predominantly this narrative between Earth and Pluto. So I see Earth as this really heteronormative place, which it is, and people from Pluto, the queer place, and people are seeking asylum from Earth to Pluto within this sexual orientation, sexual identity, and belief war that's happening between the two. And I like to think my work sits on a line between them, and there's definitely a spectrum between the two, but I don't believe that it's linear like this. I think it looks more like this. And I like to think that my work sits on these points, taking a little bit from Earth, a little bit from Pluto, mixing them together and kind of creating something new within this narrative that I've invented. So a couple of artistic influences, absolutely love Gelatin and their performances, particularly love this one. David LaChapelle, his use of colour and his explicitness to queerness is wonderful. Kira O'Reilly and how they use the body as a medium. Annie Sprinkle, again, but as a more performative and kind of a more fuck you sort of attitude with their work. Charles Ray again, and Lady Gaga, I'm completely obsessed. The meat dress actually is quite significant. It was made at a time when don't ask, don't tell in America was a law, where the idea of being gay or queer, especially within the army, was kept a secret. And this just talks about how if you fight for your country, no matter if you get killed, you're still just dead meat. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't matter who you love. You are fighting a cause. So it shouldn't be kept a secret. So innate naivety, this is sort of what I talk about quite a bit. This is something that I coined about a year or so ago in one of my essays for university. And it sort of describes a heteronormative derived naivety and complacency with that. So it is an unwillingness to learn. There's, I know what I'm talking about, so I'm right. Whereas if you maybe step back a bit and look and learn, you might see new things. And I believe this sort of straightness that affects everyone, this innate naivety, does affect everyone. So whether you are within the queer community, being brought up in a heteronormative community and living in a heteronormative sphere still has its imprint on you and your beliefs, and there's a constant battle to wash them away, I think. There's, I'm not saying that heteronormativity is a bad thing, but I think what I see as the core beliefs and the hatred and the disrespect that entices is despicable, and it is something that we as a population need to move away from and discover something new. So I started with my manifesto, and this sort of underpins everything that I've done from making this. And I will actually just play it for you. Let me just get the audio on my phone. Oh, if it wants to play. I just want to apologise. I completely forgot to mention about flashing lights. I did mention the Jägermeister hasn't clicked in yet. What's next? Oh, slide, come on. So this really is just about.
Well, something to eat with my antibiotics and I ain't like a dick.
So this is really just about loving people and finding this paradise. Empathetic Earth, we defend our rights, plutocratic abortion, sailing through space to holy goodness, protected by love. Together we fight for Plutopia. And I think there's something really strong in the words together we fight for Plutopia. It's not a one-person job to love everyone. You know, everybody needs to do their bit. And I then also talk about this as a singular, as for me later on, but I think as a sort of broad meaning of this manifesto, everybody just needs to love each other a bit more and be kind. So now I'm going to talk about a little bit of this, this other language that's on the side, which sort of keys into this. So it is a direct translation from English into this other language. It is just a font necessary, technically, but I do it in a way that it creates this us and them mantra, but in the opposite way of within a heteronormative sphere. So instead of, oh, excuse me, Jägermeister. So instead of the, one thing that really annoys me, not annoys me, but I think really describes the heteronormative sphere are the little parties and the, oh, what are they called? When you celebrate what genitals your baby's gonna have, your gender reveal parties. And I feel, especially within a queer perspective, that is it's a very odd thing to be stuck in that way. And it's not only, I also think it's a privilege in a way that it shows off, oh, I'm not queer, my family isn't queer, I am within this binary of male and female heteronormative sort of realm. And I find it kind of problematic. So with this, I kind of flip it. So instead of it being legible, it's now something that no one can understand. And it's important to me that it's like no one can understand, because it's one step further than what we are in at the moment. It's not just people who are affected by heteronormativity, whether you're queer or not. It's reading or speaking from a completely different land, from Pluto, from Plutopia, that we're trying to reach for the paradise. One simple way that I've done this, which Birmingham City Council probably hates me for, but I've created these stickers, and I've purposely used warning signs because there's a sort of alarm and scariness to them. And I've placed them around here and there, in places that look like they should be there. So you could walk past and not even notice it, but the second you read it, it's like, oh, something's wrong here. Why can't I read this? Why has somebody put this sticker here? And it's a way for people to start asking questions, because the second you start asking questions, you start disregarding what you know or you think you know, and then you start to learn, and then you can move on and we can grow together. One little, so towards the beginning of last year, when I really started to think about Plutopia and this narrative, and it was just before I wrote my manifesto, I decided to make this artwork, a little something for the weekend, number 1 and number 2. Excuse me. And this really reads to me, probably not in the way you expect it. It's at face value, I see this as, so it's a baggie with holographic lettering, exactly a gram. So I see this as like possibly cocaine, but it's a gay cocaine. It's something you have at the weekend where nobody else knows, something you keep private, this queerness that you can't show people because it's illegal or taboo. But in a way, this is sort of my comment on why that is. Why does people think, right, I can't be myself, I've got to hide it. It's only something that I do on the weekend, I can't tell anyone else about. And you can kind of see here that I was sort of toying with the idea of aliens and this sort of ironic happy face that's on the baggie too. Like, I think there's something really quite interesting there. And I know that word is kind of controversial with it, especially within the Van Leeuwen group, but there is something kind of interesting, honestly interesting, with the happy face or the alien face. I also took this one a little bit further, broken fags in a smiley face bag. So this is literally just cigarettes smushed up, put into a smiley face bag. And it really talks about, I think it talks about how using the word fag as a derogative term, when I personally don't think it should be used as a derogative term, or is used within my friendship group at least. It's more of a term of endearment, but that's the sort of reappropriation and changing what it means. So it's people, fags, who feel destroyed inside but put a happy face on. There's so much destroyed and there's so much fake happy faces that they might as well sell it. You can get rid of it for free and people don't want that baggage. You might as well have it. You pretend to be the fag for once while you have your glitter on the weekend, but I'm fed up of carrying this baggage around. This one as well, it sort of toys into this, but on a more sort of sexual element. It's a business quick deposit, which is actually the type of bag that it is. And it's actually filled with, I believe it's 20 condoms. Oh, pardon me, Jägermeister. Filled with semen and lubricant. I will stop mentioning Jägermeister at some point. Filled with semen and lube, and the idea of it being a quick deposit, this idea of rapid and sort of hidden a lot of the time, especially if you're at like a cruising site. It's people who don't want people to know that they're there, and it still talks about this little thing on the weekend, maybe at night after midnight, and then it's gone. There is a sexiness to that, but then it goes a bit deeper and there's a sadness to that. There's people shouldn't have to hide behind a facade or whatever, just be yourself. And I think this is sort of explains that. At least it does for me. So on a more, for me, it's a bit more of a conservative side, but in a way it's a bit more abstract, is how I can use my body within my work too, and this sort of push and pull within society. So this is a performance that I've been working on. I haven't actually exhibited it anywhere yet, but it's where I staple my hair to the floor many times, and I then, as I sit up, I actually rip my hair out. And I think this sort of sitting next to my other work really shows the struggle that I'm trying to, in a way, cleanse from myself and from my mind as I'm performing. Another one like it is a walk in the park. So this was a performance I did in the Nayshells, yeah. And it was really funny because the police literally came around the corner just as I was getting my clothes back on. I kind of wonder what would happen if they saw me out there dressed like this. But the bricks to me signify queerness in a way. It lifts you up. Queerness is a good thing. It's good to be queer, but within a heteronormative sphere, it pulls you down and it weighs you down, and it's hard to walk. And sometimes you do fall over and you cut your foot open on the brick. But it's also kind of funny too. This heteronormative sphere is somewhat laughable if you step away from it. It's my way of exploring what the world is and how I can change that. So this is another one. This is just an animated GIF. So it's where I've attached the bricks. It was thrown over the tree behind me, and it's attached to my hair and to my genitals. And here's another version of that one. And this one's sort of a mixture of the two. So this is me balancing on the bricks just on my knees and also stapling my hair to the floor. Right, so cigarettes and fags is quite a recurring thing within my work. This is a 3D model that I made using a cigarette as a spaceship to get to Plutopia. And I will talk about this a bit later on because I'll talk about this in a bit later on, but I see it as a way for people to get to Pluto from Earth, but in doing so, you sort of kill yourself a little bit. Cigarettes are harmful. There's no way a cigarette is going to burn all the way to get to Pluto. It's obviously going to crash somewhere. It's always trying to find this paradise. And I'm a bit cautious of time, so I'll speed up a little bit. This is another piece of work where I laser cut cigarette butts that say Plutopia. But this is just a graveyard of them. It's a scrapyard. But then it's also something that people just have on their table at home. So this medship is a 3D render of a spaceship that I made in my flat, which was an absolute nightmare to live around. But I think it was quite interesting to live within it and experience this sort of away from normality. It blocked out my window in my living room, so it seemed very unnatural, which I think really works with the context that I'm exploring. And then I decided to crash it because I don't think anybody can reach Plutopia at the moment, not how we are, how under the current circumstances, under the current government, under the current sort of culture, it's still really hard to find this paradise. And this is just a picture of me setting it up. There's a crap ton of tinfoil. Probably spent around £10 just on like 50p rolls of tinfoil alone, let alone everything else. A couple of pictures of it lit up. And then my favorite picture of all from this little mini project is it in the bin, because it was an absolute nightmare to live in. But I did keep the other elements of the tinfoil, and I created a little asteroid from it, a little crash site, and it just lived in my hallway for about 2 months over lockdown. And again, it was really quite interesting to live with. I would walk around it. I tried to keep it preserved, even though it was destroyed. And I think for me, it sort of reflects how I feel, and especially about how I feel being queer myself, that you might look destroyed, but it's still worth protecting yourself. It's still worth growing and living. This piece is sort of my idea of what the government is at the moment. You can kind of see in the middle, there's Boris Johnson having a wank while he's killing an alien. You've got a party of aliens down at the bottom where one's tried to save the other one, but instead he's got engrossed in face fucking the green person's head. And right at the top, there's 2 aliens fucking just being like, you know what, we're gonna die, let's just have fun. So this sort of leads into how my sort of stance on how the rainbow was used over the pandemic, especially in 2020. And the year that all physical representation of queerness, so Pride, there's no Pride events, it was all online, but no one's going to access that if you're outside of the queer circle, outside of a queer sphere. You're not going to look for Pride because you don't care about it. And I think it's very important to be visible. So these are free to download on my website. And the idea is to print them off on pink paper, but white paper is fine, and hang them in the window. And it's a sort of a queer version of the rainbows that people hang in their windows. Because as you walk past it, it's like, okay, well, what the fuck's that? But then it's also very strange to stop and to stare at someone's window and see what it is. And it's a way of just disrupting the flow of things. And that's sort of what this next piece is. So these are Happy Sad leaflets, which I won't get them. And I've been handing them around, dressed as the devil, Pan, who is associated with the mythology of Pluto. He's the god of the underworld. And I think that's kind of fun to explore as well, how queerness is seen as part of the underworld and a bad thing. And this work really talks about the consent of visibility. So I'm going around posting these. If I can't post them through a letterbox, I actually get into people's apartments, which is really easy. You just have to walk in. Most of them are just unlocked, and post them. If I couldn't do that, I would force them through the doors. And especially within this time of COVID, nobody wants to touch anything, but then physically pushing something into someone's house, there is a consent issue there, but then it's also almost a protest of visibility. Oi, look, I'm here. Look at me. Now, I purposely made sure that these were there wasn't a lot of information to them. Clearly, there's some sort of writing, but you can't understand it. That sort of goes back to the language thing about us and them. And the pink and black, not only because I absolutely love pink and black, and I think it really works with what I'm exploring, and I like to wear pink and black. The sort of happy sadness goes with the sort of opposite of the dark and the light pink. And posting them guaranteed somebody will interact with them, whether they know what to do or not, whether they just throw it away straight away, or it's just left in that inside their post box forever. But if it's actually into their house, they have to pick it up, they have to touch it. And I'm forcing people to look at this thing and go, what is this? And then again, people are asking questions. So you disregard old information, you start to go, oh, what's this? And then you might learn something or discover something new. And now I'm really cautious on time. Actually, I don't have much left. So a few things that I've been working on as, which is really annoying because I was going to be able to finish a piece of work today, but then the post didn't arrive and I was on the phone screaming at people because my parcel didn't arrive, which is actually NASUP Limited. I think this just zooms in a little bit, yeah. So this is an idea, this is a brand that I've sort of decided to make, providing equipment on the front line within this Plutopian war between Earth and Pluto. And so this is the main thing that I'm working on. And this is just a little bit of a diagram. It's a survival tin, which I actually have. I don't know if you can see. This is just a little mock-up that I've done. And inside, it's got everything you need to survive if you land on a heteronormative world. So in there, these are the main items. So there's a baggie with 4 different tablets in. So there's a white one, a red one, a green one, and a black one. So the white one, not only can it be used as lubricant, it's also a suicide pill in case you get into such bad trouble on this crashed world. There's a green one, which turns your hormones, and it's more of a sort of a cloak that makes you look more straight. There's what was it? The black one is to turn you back more queer, and the red one alters your blood so that you're able to give blood if you've had sex within 3 months, because that's something that should not be a thing. All blood gets tested. There's no reason to wait the extra 3 months if it's a male who's had sex with a male. So actually, it's just a bit of dyed rice. It does nothing, but it's something to question that. And I'm also making these pots, which also should have arrived today, but didn't, with these medication in. That's it, actually. Last thing I just want to touch on is I've been accepted into Goldsmiths, but I am about £22,000 down, because I don't have a rich mummy and daddy to get me into art school, because that seems to be a thing. And the government loan for a master's is about £11,000, and that just about covers 1 year of tuition, and my course is 2 years, let alone living costs. So if you are able to or would like to, it would be really nice if you could donate a bit of money. If you donate £100 or more, you can I will send you a signed copy of the love print that I've got displayed, or you can download it for free off my website as well. And that's it. Thank you. Where's the close button? Here we go.
Thank you so much for that. That was great to see all your work. And I myself am very familiar with your work, but it's great to see it all together, I guess, and as like a time span. I'm gonna start with a few questions, and if anyone else wants to join in, feel free to raise your hand or just drop a message into the chat and we can pick up on them. So my first question is that it seems quite apparent that the written word is really important to your work, or has become more important to your work. And I think quite a lot about your essay, which you wrote across your body. So for those who haven't seen it, Ryan wrote his second year essay across his body and then photographed it, and that's what he submitted. So I was wondering, why was writing it on the body such an important process for you?
So that essay was why human objectification is controversial. And in my argument is that it's only controversial mainly because you see it within a heteronormative sphere as well. There is a sexiness to being objectified, as long as it's not in a derogative way or in one that's enriched in hate. And it was really important for me to do that and break this conventional rule of just providing an essay. I wanted something completely different, because my argument especially within an art school where objectification is mostly seen as a negative thing, I really just wanted to blur those lines a bit and be like, picture, no. And again, just get people thinking, maybe there's something more to what I've been told. Maybe there's something more to what I've seen.
And you also wrote an essay quite recently, which was your third year dissertation, exploring how inexo naivety and societal biases to a heteronormative context, which is currently available on the RALM website for everyone to read. If there are any kind of art students in this call who are getting to that dissertation point or are looking to write more essays, how was that process for you of suddenly having to write such a large document of your work?
I would recommend don't listen to me because I left it quite late. I had an idea, and I would say just don't rush into it either, because your idea does progress as you're researching and writing, but don't also leave it to the last week to finish writing it, because that is just a headache. Definitely just do bits and bobs here and there, but also don't rush it. Think about exactly what you want to say.
So we saw quite a few of your performances during this presentation and different things you've done public facing, and you seem to do performances that are quite private and to only maybe one or two people, and then you have some which are to quite larger audiences, like the camp show you did, which was not only presented live at the Birmingham School of Art but was also live streamed as well. How do you feel like your performance differs if you're presented to such a large audience compared to maybe one or two people?
I would like to think that they don't differ that much. Whatever the audience is, I think the performance itself is what's important, and the context behind it. Doesn't matter if no one sees it, whether it's just me or if several thousand have seen it on Pornhub or on Cam4. I think it's just important to believe in what you make, and really don't worry about who's watching, because the second you do, you're just going to trip.
And as well, you do touch on that you have put performances and things on Pornhub. Do you think that is an important part of your practice, or do you see that as separate to you as an artist, those two different spheres?
I think the artwork and the porn that I've put on Pornhub, they originate from two separate spheres. One because I was feeling horny and did something, and the other one has probably a bit more contextual background. But I do think that they talk to each other, and there's an importance that they're seen next to each other. It's also challenging because there's not many platforms that would allow to share some of the videos that I make. But with Pornhub, the fact that it's also surrounded by all this other porn makes that artwork as well. So the second you start seeing, oh, there's artwork on Pornhub, what else can be artwork? Again, it's just changing things and just making questions for people.
And my final question, you did touch there about like censorship and how a lot of your work sometimes isn't allowed on certain platforms. Does that fuel your fire of that, certain people won't let you show that work? Does that make you want to make your work even more out there to, make more of a reaction?
Maybe not so much more of a reaction, though I do think it's important to be controversial, because the second you start asking questions, people are going to start disagreeing. Censorship is a big thing. Even within university, it's been experienced a little bit, which is really quite disheartening. But as long as you power through that, you do whatever you can, and eventually there will be more platforms. Just nipples on Instagram, just as a basic thing. I think that's what we should start doing on Round Lemon. Every time we have a female's nipples out, we just crop it and put male nipples over the top and see what it does. Does it still block it? Does it not? Just mess things up a bit and just have fun with it.
So I would love to open it out to everyone in the audience now. So I've just picked up on a question in the chat first, which says, "Hi Ryan, really great talk. Obviously the concept of the body and the queer body is very important to your work. Could you talk more about the concept of the body within your practice?"
So the body, it's interesting because I really use it as an abstract tool to represent myself. Whereas I know a lot of people who use the body use it as a more general term as people or as meat or flesh. Whereas for me, the body is just me, stripped down to nothing. Maybe there's a chastity cage or some chain or an earring, but I also think that's still part of me. And I think putting these stresses on the body, in a way, it is a sort of form of bondage. It's a way to relax and work out the frustrations of the world around me.
I would love to throw it over now to Carmela, who's got their hand raised.
Hi. What was really interesting is I'm obviously familiar with your work, but during the presentation, I noticed the pink and your pink background, and just in your manifesto when it mentions we show our pink parts. And why are you drawn to the pink to represent this queerness?
Well, there's several reasons. I love pink. Being brought up as a boy, I've been told I shouldn't like pink, so I automatically want to love pink. It's interesting because in the manifesto we show our pink parts. For me, that refers to genitalia, and we always cover it up. Even nowadays, especially within COVID, we even cover our mouth. That's another orifice that's disappeared, you know? Like, be proud of your body, be proud of what we've been told to hide, you know? Yeah.
Oh, and I also had another question. How do we reach Plutopia?
Wow, kind of in an unfortunate way. Now this gets to a really dark place, which I don't know if everybody's ready for, and it kind of touches on like my mental health a bit too, but I think we can't reach Plutopia because of how we live and what we live and the surrounding of us. And it's why I see cigarettes as like a mini self-harm, because it's legal, but it also feels good, but then it burns up before you get to that promised land. And in a way, I think there's the only way to find Plutopia is to find yourself. And in a really dark turn, I feel the only way to do that is through death. You know, like once you've eradicated all the bullshit around you and you're just you in that final moment, maybe you have reached Plutopia.
So I've got another question from the chat right here. So it says, "Hey Ryan, fab talk and great to get an insight into your art. There's two questions here. What is your creative process? And how do you know when a piece is finished or ready to be published or share with an audience?"
My creative process, because I do have endogenous depression. So my mood goes up and down. So I can literally do nothing for 6 months, and then I can do like 5 years worth of work in 2 days. I find it really important just to take the opportunities when you feel good. And even if it's at like 4 o'clock in the morning, wake up and go outside to take pictures, do some drawing, just really hold on to when you feel creative. I also find it quite nice to step back from that. So I have a lot of ideas just in the bath, or weirdly, when I'm like feeling horny and having a wank or having sex with someone, ideas just pop into my head too, because I feel, for me, there's a sort of ecstasy within creating and sexual pleasure that really works together. And when I know a piece is finished, I kind of don't. a lot of work that I publish, and I mean, I know that it's done when I sell it online, which is still quite a new thing for me. But before that, even if it's a post that I've already printed off and it's on my wall, or it's an item that's already been made, I can still come back to it a couple of weeks later and be like, oh, that needs to change. I don't like that anymore. And because my understanding of what the work could mean has also evolved over that short space of time. So something I made a couple of days ago could be seen in a completely different light to what I do today. So just whenever. Sorry.
Got a question from Darren.
Hi Ryan, thank you
Hi,
for the talk. I've got a couple of things really. You haven't mentioned what your practice is, and that's something that you might need to navigate when you go to goldsmiths, because you've got a very eclectic way of working, and it's quite nice to see that it's about performance, it's about product, it's about you know, you've got these images, you've got this intervention, you've got all of these things, and it will be interesting to see what happens at goldsmiths and how that shapes your practice, because it feels like there's lots of energy there, and hopefully it will kind of almost like condition you into a way of thinking, but it will let you kind of bounce around and still do all the crazy stuff. But one thing I picked up on is you seem to have branded what you do as well. So you've got this typeface, you've got this language, and it would be interesting to hear that being spoken as well as it just being a typeface. But it's also, yeah, I've just picked up on how everything is very cleverly branded, and why is that important to you as a practicing artist?
So, because I feel my work really started once I made the manifesto, and my work sort of originates from that, and everything I do seems to always reflect back to it. And I think the branding is important because the manifesto is me trying to find myself. Plutopia is me. I'm trying to find how to get out of this hell that I live in, and how to find and make something new. And I think the branding just adds that little personal touch. It's almost like me signing the work, being like, yeah, like signing a love note, like it's my thing, to me. But then I suppose it is something that other people could recognize as well.
Yeah, it's really compelling to see someone your age kind of understanding it. So, you know, I think it's great, and I don't want it to deflect, but I suppose we are bombarded with brands and branding and logo, and it's just nice that you're kind of, that's a bit of a crap word, but it's just good to see someone getting to grips with it and playing with it, and how that links into kink and fetish, because it does. I mean, I'm wearing an Adidas top, and I know lots of people have kind of these fantasies about the logos, and it was just, yeah, just kind of compelling to see someone making work about that aspect as well. Cheers.
Thank you.
So I actually want to ask, actually, I mean, I know the answer to this, but could you kind of talk about your involvement in Round Lemon, and do you see that as an integral part of your practice?
I do and I don't. I definitely see them as two separate entities, but there's a crossover for me in the sense of community, and whether it's my work is about the community, but then also how I sit within it. But then I think Round Lemon is a way to push out a bit further. Round Lemon is definitely a very queer, safe space, and I don't think that will ever change. And like even the open mic last night was very queer but very wonderful. and that there is definitely a link between the two there.
We have another question in the chat. It says, do you have an idea, do you have an end of year show? And if you do you have an idea of what you are showing?
Oh, well, we don't know yet still if we're having an end of year show or not. Within the university, at least anyway. There's a lot of thoughts about creating our own show through Round Lemon, or something even a bit more personal on my website, or maybe in public. I definitely want to carry on with sort of public intervention, like giving out the leaflets. There's one performance that I have in mind using cigarettes and a speculum that I've got in mind, but that's still something I want to play around with, and if I think it's suitable or developed enough, it's probably the thing that I want to exhibit as a main piece.
So another question, how do the open mics work and how can people get involved?
Okay, so the open mics, they're once a month. It's free to sign up on Round Lemon. Just go to the events page, and I believe it's the top one. I think it's pinned as the top one. You just put in your information. We'll get back to you whether you're going to be the month that you want or maybe the month after, because they are filling up quite quickly. We don't say no to anyone. The only thing that we have is, especially because we've only had a few so far, if people don't turn up consecutively 2 times, then there's like a ban for 6 months to not apply again, as like an incentive to really keep the community going, because the worst thing is turning up and nobody being there to watch you perform or to perform. But you just go onto roundlemon.co.uk/events, the top one, put your information in, and we'll get back to you. Tickets are free for that as well.
Yeah, and there's no pressure to perform any of them. You can just come along and watch and ask questions. Performers, a bit like tonight. It's really fun atmosphere, and then it creates a lovely community of practitioners and people who love art. Another question, great performance, nice to understand things behind. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
I don't know if I can see myself in 10 days from now, to be honest. My goal, where I want to be, is where I am now, or coming up to it. I want to, it might sound rather cheesy, but I want to live art. I want to work with it through Round Lemon. I want to be able to sell it, make a living from it. It's just the thing that I've always gravitated to. So whether that is in London, in Birmingham, in anywhere, I just really want to have some sort of connection to the arts. Ideally, I think I would be either in London or Birmingham, continuing with my practice, but ideally anywhere within the arts.
Do we have any last questions before we wrap this up? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. So where can people find you?
So I have a Twitter, which is definitely more porn than art, which is, I think it's sub Dyson. There's Dyson Asbury on Instagram, and then there's my website, ryanasbury.co.uk.
So thank you very much, Ryan, for showing us your work, and thank you so much to everyone who's attended tonight. And I've put a few links in the chat for you all. So we've got Ryan's website and Instagram page, as well as the Round Lemon page. If you'd like to find out more about us, we are on Instagram and Twitter at round_lemon. We're also on Facebook as well, and you can find us on the Round Lemon website. We post everything we do on there, and you can also sign up to our newsletter to see more events like this. And we hope to see you at some of our future artist talks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.